Hey folks, welcome back to another one of my videos. I'm Brennan from Bluelight, and for those who haven't seen these videos before, this is the place. This is the place to find out all you need to know about the police recruitment process. Whether you're preparing to join the police or you're actually in the police, because a lot of the guidance I provide is equally valid for those of you who are already serving. It may have been my clients years ago or months ago, whatever it might have been. Anyway, today I've been asked this really interesting question around why someone failed on working with others at the interview. They passed everything else as part of their assessment centre, but they can't figure out why they failed on working with others in their interview at the Search Assessment Centre. Now, the working with others competency is an old one. I call this old money. These are the competencies here. If I remember, I'll try and put a link below in the blurb to these competencies so you can read them. And they're broken down into behavioural expectations. There's very little about values in there. That's why we've got the competency and values framework. Just dig out a copy of that. If that's prepared, I would have had one right in front of me, but here we go. There's the competency and values framework for policing. It's been knocking around now for a good few years now. 2016, so 4 years this has been available for. And yet many assessment processes within the police are still assessing against old money. Change takes time in the police. You'd be thinking, right, it was introduced in 2016, should be bedded in by now. No, miles away. So the competency and values framework does exactly what's on the side of the tin. It assesses both competency, behavioural competency, and your values. This, just competency. Anyway, working with others. I think one of the things that people confuse is that working with others is about just working with others. No, it's about far more than that, far more than that. So in your answers, you need to be, and I'll read directly off this, forgive me because I can't remember it off by heart, but it does actually say works cooperatively with others to get things done. But then it goes on to say about giving help and support to colleagues, being approachable, developing positive working relationships, explaining things well, listening carefully, asking questions to clarify understanding, persuading people by stressing the benefits of a particular approach, keeping people informed of progress. So I think there's a lot there that's more than just working with other people. So I'm going to give you a little top tip from my career where, I'm going to give myself a little pat on the back. I felt, especially in my role as a neighbourhood inspector, I was pretty good at working with others. I mean, some of the things on the wall there, that newspaper article, the police teams helping to change lives for good, that was all about us demonstrating that we were really good as a policing team, as a neighbourhood policing team, in working with others. Back there, one of my proudest moments, a visit from a Prime Minister who came to see how we were working with others. So a lot of what I did as a neighbourhood inspector was providing that level of support for others that's described in that competency. And I think that's one of the things that's missing in some of your answers when you're giving interview answers. You're talking too much about yourself, what you did, what you did, what you did, what you did, what you did. And some of the answers don't actually involve other people. So you can't really get marked against working with others if your answer is all about you and what you did. And it doesn't actually describe how you interacted with other people. Now, it doesn't have to be other agencies. Like in my role as a neighbourhood inspector, a lot of it was about interacting with other agencies. Just be about working as part of a small team. All your answers should be about you in your role as part of a team. And if you're thinking, I've never been part of a team before, then you're probably not ready to join the police, if I'm being brutally frank with you. So you should have examples of where you've been part of a team. It doesn't have to be at work. It could be volunteering. It could be something that was set up to help organise a friend's wedding. I know one of my clients gave a brilliant answer to me during one of my coaching sessions. She used it as her interview around working with others, and she nailed it. She absolutely nailed it. So it doesn't really matter what the circumstances are. Volunteering, sporting events, work, college, university, as long as it's not something that is just you. And that's one of the reasons why I think people trip up. Now, there's something that I used to call investing in the emotional bank account. Investing in the emotional bank account. That's what I used to do as a neighbourhood inspector. And this is a sort of ethos of what I'd like you to think about if you are putting yourself in situations where you're going to be working with others to solve problems, to make difficult decisions, whatever it might be, to work under pressure, to a deadline, to support other people, to help enable change, whatever it might be. These are all very, very popular interview questions, whether it's final interview or day one interview or search assessment centre interview. These are all very, very popular questions, all about how you interact and work with other people. So one of the things I used to like to do as a neighbourhood inspector with other agencies, and you can do this with individuals, is invest in their emotional bank account. And the way I used to do that, as opposed to asking for help when I needed it, I would go to them to find out what help they needed from me. What could I do to help support them? What could I do to enable them to achieve the things that they want to achieve? Now, as a neighbourhood inspector, I had a lot of clout there. There's a lot I could do to support other agencies, housing associations, environmental teams, licensing teams. I would go to them first. So what I was doing there is I was working cooperatively with others to get things done. I was willingly giving help and support to my colleagues before they even asked for it. Of course I was approachable because I'm going to them and I'm offering something. I'm not asking for something, I'm offering something. And the way I'd do that, the way I'd find out what I could do to support them would be by asking questions and listening carefully to the nuance of what they're telling me, so I could really work out what it was that they were struggling with. Sometimes I'd have to persuade other team members that this was the right thing to do. Sometimes I'd have to persuade some agencies we worked with or some community groups of the benefits of this approach. And the general approach was one that was less about how can we fix you as a community, what are your problems and priorities so that we can then go and fix them on your behalf and tell you what we've done to fix them. The approach was more about enabling, supporting. So how can we support you as a community, or you as individuals, or you as a team, to be the best version of yourself that you can be? Now that's the phrase I used in my head. I didn't use it too much in community because that could seem a bit too cliched. But that was the approach: supporting, enabling, investing in providing support for others before they needed to ask for it. So when it came to me ever needing help from those agencies, all I'd have to do is call them. I'd have their number on my phone. I used to think that's a good indicator of whether you've got really good relationships with other community groups and agencies within the council, housing associations, mental health teams, drug and alcohol action teams, social services. If you've got first names on your phone, then you probably have invested in that time to get that relationship right. And that was a really good way of doing it. I found invest in their emotional bank account. So when it came time for me to ask for help from them, it was willingly given. There was no argument because they remembered the time when I approached them and asked them what support they needed to help them achieve what they needed to achieve. So there you go, folks, working with others. There's a lot to it, but the key part I want you to remember is explaining in your interview, and in my client-only group and on my courses, I explain how to structure your answers in a way that is going to enable you to talk for 3 or 4 minutes, to enable then the interviewer to ask you supplementary questions. You need a structure, a detailed structure, one that's far more detailed than that cliched star stuff. I mean, who knows the difference between task and action? Not many people do. And when I ask them to explain it, they always get it wrong. And actually, I don't really understand it. I think the only reason why they use star is because it spells a word. So I use a different structure, the SAL structure. Situation, your aim, the actions you took, the result, and the learning. And we sometimes take it one step further by talking about why this value or skill is so important to the force. And that allows you to show off your knowledge of the force and where it wants to go. Anyway, that's the icing on the cake. We also need to have depth to what we're talking about. So we're not going to say I empathised with them, or then I went and spoke to them, or I approached the person calmly and professionally. That's what you did. I want to know how you did it. I want to know how you did it. So that's the depth that we want to provide. I want you to talk about how you felt. Excuse me. I want to talk about you to talk about how you felt. So you're getting your real, authentic and emotional self out there as well. And then the result, I don't want to hear that the garden's rosy, everything you touch is brilliant, because that means the example you're giving me wasn't challenging enough. I want to hear about times when things didn't work out, because that's what policing is all about. It doesn't always work out for the best. Well, it kind of works out for the best eventually, but it doesn't always work out how you thought it would. It's a very dynamic, complex place to be, being a police officer. So don't try and persuade me that everything you touch turns to gold. Because if you do that, you've got nothing to learn, have you? Nothing to learn. It can't have been challenging enough, and you've got nothing to learn, so you can't talk about the learning that comes at the end of it. So that's about 4 minutes worth. If you go through that sort of structured approach, which I advocate, you find out more about that on my courses, and more about that, especially in the Facebook client-only group, where there's about getting on for 3,000 people now in there. A lot of people hang around and stay. A lot of people pass, move on, leave. Perhaps they don't want me in their Facebook feed anymore, and that's fine. They've achieved what they wanted to achieve. They're now successful as a police officer. Some people stick around, some people don't. But anyway, thousands of people now in these Facebook groups. Just amazing, just amazing. So there's some links to those below if you want to find out more about the Facebook groups, or the online services, or the seminars, or the one-to-one coaching, or the webinars. The webinars are only available, by the way, to my Facebook group members. And there's something else. Oh my goodness, I love running those webinars. Listen, folks, I've got almost over 30 years of experience in this area now, not just as a police officer, but as someone who's been coaching and supporting people for several years to succeed, be the best version of themselves they can be for the police recruitment process. I've worked alongside police forces and councils since I left the police around community engagement, problem solving. I've been part of a group within the European Union that was looking at improving the relationship between citizens and the police, especially in Central and Eastern Europe. That was a really, really good project I was involved with on their advisory board for 3 years. I've spoken at conferences about this sort of thing. So that concept of investing in your emotional bank account is something that has legs. It links in with all sorts of other theories around things like asset-based community development and appreciative inquiry and a whole load of other stuff that I talk about in other videos. But for this one, I'm going to kind of close it down now, because I think I've probably talked enough. But I hope that answers the question for you. For that person who asked me that question today, why did I fail on working with others? I can pretty much guarantee that it's because you didn't actually follow all the little subsections that exist within the working with others competency. So folks, hope you found this useful. Let me know what you think in the blurb below, or drop me a line, ask me a question, do my best to answer it for you, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye for now.